We're here.
All right, guys. Welcome to the second session of RevCon. My name is Gina Guerrieri. I am Partner Success Manager here at RevGenius. Make sure to post about RevCon on LinkedIn, guys, or whenever you see something interesting. Take a screenshot, take a note of an interesting point, post it, tag our speakers, tag RevGenius. We'd love to reshare and capture the highlights that you guys see from the audience. So please welcome our three sales experts who will be sharing the best practices and strategies. We have Leslie, Melissa, and Darren. Welcome, guys. Over to you, Melissa.
Yeah,
yeah. You want to introduce yourself to get us started?
I do. As I'm sending gifts into the chat. Hi everyone. My name is Melissa Gaglione, head of sales over at SendSpark. I create content on LinkedIn as well, and these are two of my really good friends. So I'll pass it over to Darren.
I love it. Hi, everyone. I'm Darren McKee, VP of Sales at a company called Sky. And I don't know. I love LinkedIn. I love social selling. I love video. And so that's why I ended up on this panel with these two lovely individuals. But that's it. You'll hear a lot about me later, but I'll pass it over to Leslie.
Yes, this is going to be amazing. It was such an easy yes. When it was, hey, do you want to talk about the future of sales with Darren and Melissa? I said, say less. Folks, I am Leslie Vanetz, the founder of the Sales-Led Go-to-Market agency. I loved what Gina said about screenshotting, tagging us. We're going to talk about social sales because you cannot talk about the future of sales without talking about social. So let's walk it like we talk it. What I am very, very excited to get into today is some of our own personal experiences with what's working and what's not working and what we sort of see on the horizon for ourselves and our teams. So we're going to start there, but I also want to deep dive into Outbound, one of my favorite topics, social selling, video selling. I certainly want to hold time to get your takes on some of the more nuanced things some of the more nuanced conversations that sellers are having, like, does personalization actually matter and can it scale? Is cold calling dead? Is everything dead? And generally how folks can start preparing now for success in 2025. But let's jump in. What is working now? Like, what's one of the biggest trends that you see working right now that you think is really going to help folks? I mean, it's the first day of Q4, right? Like, what is something that they can use right now, Q4, to end the year strong? Darren, what do you think? Coming out of the gates hot here.
Coming out of the gates hot. I think, listen, the one thing that I tell everyone this, right? Like, I think about LinkedIn and I'm like, all right, how do I uncover relationships and revenue that I never knew existed, right? That's what I tell myself every single morning. So the biggest thing that I can tell you to do is, if you don't, this will help you in Q1. It might help you in Q4. You need to start putting out content that's directed to your ideal client profile. I don't think that's enough though, right? So if I'm making a post about Sky and I'm talking about talent development and coaching and the benefits of what we do, the next day I need to talk about like something that might not be about that, right? So you need to have top of funnel content and you need to have ICP content, and you bring those together and like you'll just not have to worry about your pipeline as much. So what's working for me is content specific to that and also specific to my life, to make sure people know that, like, listen, we're going to talk about AI, but in an AI world, that like I'm still a human, right?
Yeah.
And it's really, really important to make sure we know how to do that.
Ooh, so much there. I mean, in the world of AI, the more human we are, the more resonant our content is going to be. I think that's so true. But the thing that I loved was your distinction between top of funnel content, sort of content to grow, content to brand build, versus more middle or bottom of the funnel content. It's a conversation I was literally having yesterday with my good friend, Monica Stewart. And I shared that when I write content that is more niche, it has a higher probability of bringing in qualified leads, but it is very unlikely to perform well. And I think that that's something that folks might really struggle with as they, because LinkedIn is still social media.
Yeah.
And they might feel some pressure to write viral posts or maybe they feel some internal doubt that their posts aren't like they aren't doing a good enough job because they aren't writing these posts that blow up. But what I'm hearing you say, Darren, is that there's a real value
Mhm.
in writing posts that are not meant for everybody, that are
Yeah.
not ever going to go viral because they generate leads. Can you give me an example of what like each of those types of posts might look like?
Yeah, so I mean, I think to your point, like you said it a minute ago, like if just because I have a post that gets 600 likes and 82 comments, that is something that has nothing to do. That doesn't mean it's going to bring me any revenue, right? But what that does mean, and I'm thinking of one in specific where I'm sitting in Merle's Inlet, and I have my daughter on my arm, and I have a Miller Lite in my hand, and I'm talking about just like vacation and PTO, right, or something like that. That brought a lot of people into my funnel, right? Some
Mhm.
buyers, some not buyers, some could be like partnership people, some could be just people that are just like perusing because it's social media now, right? Well, what happens the next day is like, all right, maybe there was 15 of my ICP that did engage with that. When I talk about coaching and talent development tomorrow, they're like, oh, that's that guy that was at Merle's Inlet with his daughter holding a Miller Lite, right? Like
Mhm.
that, like, so it's easier. And I always tell people when I'm training them, I'm like, all right, if your buyer likes your sky related post, they might be interested. If they like the Merle's Inlet post, they're probably going to buy. Uh,
Yeah.
and if you can tie the both of those together, that's like it's the most beautiful thing ever. And so I always think about like ICP regular, ICP regular. And if you do that all year long, you'll be like pleasantly surprised.
You become a familiar face to them. And I know, Melissa, that's something that you talk a lot about when it comes to video and the power of video to sort of connect the face to the voice to the company. And we're going to deep dive video. Don't worry, folks. But before we get there, Melissa, what is your trend prediction or what is your like big Q4 2024 bet you think sellers should be making right now?
So a few different areas. I'm very big on the inbound, outbound sort of motion. You gather attention, you get people to go to your website. Now what do? You have these visitors, you have these people heading to your, LinkedIn profile, they're clicking through. Like what do you do from there? And so we'll talk a little bit about now how to outbound after that inbound, right? The people that are looking at your profile, the people that are going to your company website, the people that are going to your company LinkedIn or your CEOs that they're connecting with. Like those are all people that are now getting your company's attention. So how do you act upon that? And I think those are all really important ways to just like progress. But for right now, just being mindful of the time and, we're going into the next quarter, big deal, right? If I were you all, I would look to see who did you close this year and whose network can you leverage so that way you can start now networking and bringing in some of those warmer deals, or maybe someone else can say, oh, this person's experiencing this, and start using your current clients to see who you can close in the next quarter. And that's just through networking. That's with maintaining good relationships. That's with, reaching out to your champions and saying, hey, I know you've been using the product for XYZ. I know you're seeing this result. Who else in your network do you think would benefit from this? And then navigating, from there. So I would go that route, just, looking at the calendar. That's where I would kind of start trending.
Smart, super, super smart. And what I love about that approach, Melissa, is that certainly that will serve folks right now because they have those opportunities to leverage their network to get those referrals. We all know that referrals close more often and close faster, but leaning into that type of strategy, that is also part of the future of sales. If we are not taking that sort of all bound approach where we mix demand gen and lead gen, where we leverage our network, where we really build, I would say that type of web where we can go back and ask folks for referrals, we're going to really struggle when it comes to continuing to hit our quota. So speaking of quota and the future of sales, most folks aren't hitting it.
Yeah.
It's terrible. I saw some new data that 35% of sellers are contributing 85% of revenue. I think we've all seen like different pieces of data over the past like months and years where, I mean, it's like 40, 50% of sellers maybe are hitting their quota depending on what role they're in. So we're in a tough spot. I think like the current state of sales is in a tough spot. And what is maybe more alarming is that the new state of sales report that came out from Salesforce said that companies' revenue is increasing. So these companies are making more money, like revenue is trending up, but the sellers are just steady missing quota. So when we think about the future of sales and what's working and what's not working, I'd love to get your take on challenges that sellers are facing today and any tips that you can share that will help set them up for success as they go into this new year. Who you both look so contemplative and kind of sad right now.
You know, I it doesn't really make me sad. I think the part that I think about a lot is like, and listen, I'm gonna be like very open and vulnerable here. Like I have worked at companies, just for all of you listening, how many are here? 345 people. You see VP of sales, you see strategic partnerships, you see me posting all of this content. I have been at companies where I did not hit quota. Okay. Like it happens. You might have poor product market fit. You might have poor leadership. You might have poor post sales and customer success teams, or quite frankly, you just might have had a bad year and weren't like there mentally. And so I want to tell you, like, just because you're not hitting quota somewhere today doesn't mean that you won't hit it next quarter. What I don't want you to do is stay somewhere 6 quarters in a row where you're not hitting quota, right? That's something that I'm thinking about. And so one of the things so I was on a call with a very large sales team the other day, and I stopped in my training and I said, hey, can you, all of you, like somebody just raise their hand and tell me their top 15 accounts?
They couldn't
Not
do it.
not one person knew their top 15 accounts, right? And I looked at all of them in the face and I said, listen, if you do not know your top 15 accounts like the back of your hand, as much as you would get a job there, like if they interviewed you, you are not going to hit your number, right? So reading their 10K, reading their sustainability reports. If they're a small business or medium size, reading the news, seeing who they've brought into the organization, what is their revenue? Like you need to know enough, because if Leslie's my buyer and I get her on the phone, I better know enough to like make her say, oh my God, this person knows a ton about this business, right? And so I think it's just doing deep research, right? It's almost selling like it's 1999 again, which is something that like we have all of these tools. Like the average seller at a tech company now has like between 9 and 14 tools.
23 was the new GTM report from GTM Partners. 23 in their tech stack.
23 tools, but like nobody knows how to read a 10K.
Correct. Yes. Yeah.
So,
It's I love it. Both because it's super, super true that I think anybody who's been in sales for more than a decade is now seeing this trend to an over reliance on tools that has put many reps in a position where they've never had like the opportunity, the space to learn maybe some of the basics because they've had tools to enable them. And there is a bit of a gap there. But something else you said, Darren, around that like rigorous approach to research and account prep, that's always been true at the enterprise level. And we are seeing it become increasingly true for mid-market and even for SMB as our buyers' expectations change, as we have to navigate more complex buying committees. What about, I'm going to really put you on the spot here.
yes.
How much time should somebody be spending preparing? Let's not say for like outbound motion, like they are preparing for their discovery call. How much time should they be preparing? And does that differ if it's SMB versus mid-market versus enterprise?
Listen, it's such a tough question, and I'm going to answer wrong for some of you and right for others, right? Like some of you would be like, Darren, you're crazy. I have had SMB deals with larger ACVs, annual contract values, than my enterprise deals. So I spend the same amount of time on these small ones. I mean, if it's a 5K deal, I'm not going to spend a ton amount of time on it, but those SMB deals sometimes end up being bigger than the large ones, right? And so listen, I think you can spend 45 minutes to an hour, like doing a deep dive. Most of you, if you have a good director of sales or a good VP of sales, you have what's called an account planning document that you fill out. That's like who's in the organization, what's their pain, how do we know them, do we have any insight into them? It should be 2 or 3 pages of the details that are there. There are tools that help you with that now. But like once you get into the flow of this, I try to do 1 or 2 of those every single day for an account. So if something does happen, I have it all there. The really cool part about having an account plan is if you're prospecting into an SMB or mid-market and they're like, hey, I'm not interested. I send them my account plan. And I'm like, hey, just a heads up, I've done like 3 pages of research on you. You're not on a list. And so it's just really, really helpful. So, I mean, I don't know. There's no right or wrong answer there. I spend about 45 minutes. I'm not going to spend all day. That's for darn sure.
I like it. Okay, I want to hear from people that are joining us as well. Drop in the comments how much time you spend preparing for a discovery meeting. And it's okay, I'm not going to call you out. So, like, you can be honest, but I'm curious to see what the range is, because I'm sure that there are some folks that, to be fair, maybe are using a bunch of AI and using a bunch of tech and then have it like really dialed in. And for them, it's 15 or 20 minutes and they feel confident and they're impressing their customers, and maybe for other folks it's 2 or 3 hours. So drop a comment. I would love to hear where where folks are at in terms of their account prep today. Melissa, what are you seeing?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
I'm quite different. So I have not been in sales for 10 years, but I did join my sales career when I would get printouts of Zoom info lists, and I had this big, gross, I would clean it every day, this big, gross, bulky phone that I didn't even know how to use the phone. Like, that was my biggest challenge, was like, this thing keeps going like beep, like, what is this? Like, so I did start in sales in that world. And then it's funny because the way that we did it back in that time was we would copy and paste the same email on the same Zoom info list and send it out, send it out, send it out. And they didn't want to use a sequencer. So then when we started working from home, I bought myself a sequencer, and I didn't even know that these things existed. Like, I thought that I was like a genius. I started like bringing in more money. They were like, Melissa, how are you doing this? And I was using the tool. And so from then on, like, if I have a sales tool, I'm going to be obsessed with that tool. I'm going to watch all the videos. I'm going to learn everything about it. And that tool is going to be part of my superpower. And I feel that reps are just, I mean, if you're lucky to get tools, like, you need to really like learn about it. How can you use it to your advantage? Because the people around you aren't. So what can you do? And there's this lazy approach to tools, which is like, oh, it's just going to solve everything. Or like, oh, like, I sent out like 30 videos and like, this is what happened. Or, oh, I made the sequence and like it was fully automated and it was like kind of, like, it just wasn't great, or they're just getting, the account details and they're not even like really reading it, but they read like the first line and they're like, okay, it told me that, they're doing XYZ and that's all I care about. So I feel as though that like people are using tools, but they're just scraping the surface of it. And I think it's really important that like, if you get one, your company's paying a bunch of money for it. So use it, but make it part of your advantage. So that way you can propel yourself and really excel. And the amount of times that I went to leadership, even promoting other tools, saying, we need this because of this is what it's going to solve for. Even when I was an account executive, even when I was an SDR, because there were just gaps in ways that we can progress and kind of like make it a little bit, easier or more capable. But it's interesting because I used to think my superpower coming from being a journalist was being able to analyze 10Ks, read reports, dive into that. And I would spend a lot of time. Now I do have the tools, but because I understand why is this important for my persona, how do I articulate this to my, prospect about, you're experiencing XYZ, you just did this, you just acquired this, all of these reasons why, how does that now impact your pains or problems and how my solution can help? That's the important piece of it. So, really owning your tools, but understanding the purpose, the why, the power behind it. So that way you can articulate like, all the data and the reasons why to your prospect.
I love that both of you went a different direction with that answer, but the thread that both of you were on was make it matter to your prospect. Like, you are doing all of this in service of showing up to that conversation with your prospect and being really clear that you've like earned the right to their time because you have prepared, because you have insights to share, because you're not just going to feature dump on them. And I think, like, as we think about this umbrella topic, like what is working and what's not working, a lot of what's not working are older approaches to sales that don't center the buyer, they
Yeah.
center the seller. And what is working are approaches to sales that are more buyer centric, to use the buzzword. But I want to talk about what that looks like. I want to deep dive like some of that, like it's dead, everything's dead. What does good social selling look like? Why does it work? Why does video work, etc.? Before we move on to that topic, I would love to just hear from our audience one more time. I want to hear what their big bet is for 2025. So folks, head to the chat and drop a comment. If you were going to place like one big bet for 2025, maybe it's a new piece of tech that you're going to invest in. Maybe it's a new type of account research you're going to do, or it's whatever it is that you're really, really excited to incorporate in 2025 to bring to your sales process, to bring to your buyers. Flying around again. I've already started doing that. I'm on the road. I'm Leslie worldwide. So drop a comment. I want to hear what your big bets are for 2025. While folks are commenting, let's start deep diving some of what makes the future of sales more buyer centric and what those specific actions, what those specific strategies look like.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm going to start with social. I mean, y'all that are watching, you got 3 people on here that like love social and all have a slightly different approach to social, which I think is really cool that we've all had our individual success, even though we really show up quite differently and on different platforms. Maybe I'll just start with kind of a softball question because I'm curious and I'm the moderator and I can ask what I want. Melissa, what made you decide? Because maybe like I'll take a step back. Social is tough, folks. Like people see the success that we have. I know for me, they're like, oh my God, so many followers. And I'm like, I posted every single day for over 1,000 days to get here. Darren, I know you had a very similar journey. So like, I'm asking this question in the context of it is not easy to show up on social. It is not easy to be consistent. It is not easy to provide value, yet you do it anyway. What made you feel called to that, Melissa?
I wish I said I planned it out. Like this is all part of it. Like I totally and expected all this to happen, but I didn't. I started originally, this was back when I was selling events and I was selling events to CISOs and I would just post CISO event, online learning, things like that, and just starting adding my ICP. And it was like once a month or so. And I was getting people to come in to join my events. And I was like, well, this isn't a good idea. This is working. And this was back when I was doing, the Zoom info, list and copy and pasting things. And like everyone at my company was like, you made a LinkedIn post and you got someone to sign up for an event. And like, it was crazy. And then I actually went and I was really random, but I immediately saw like a little bit of impact there. And then I started the SDR role and, I didn't post regularly. I didn't have this plan, but I was mentored by Brandon Fluharty, who was a strategic seller, closed at Delta, these big things. And he was posting on LinkedIn and I was just learning through his posts. He was mentoring me in a small group of SDRs out of the kindness of his heart. And I started seeing that like, okay, he's actually bringing in some more opportunities by posting, but like, I'm also now getting to know him a little bit more. And if he can do it, like I can do it a little bit. So I started sharing when I got promoted, some of my little wins, some of the habits that I was building because I was really taking my job really seriously, what it was like to be an SDR in the middle of COVID because it was really tough and starting off and like everything was changing. And that's all I was sharing about. And then it started to snowball into, oh my God, leads are coming. Oh my God, I'm making real friends, real people. Leslie and I have gone out to dinner, have done yoga because LinkedIn connected us. I started like really loving the platform and just wanting to be even better for myself, because if I was going to be sharing, then that means I need to experiment. That means that I need to level up. It's like that Michael Jordan effect of like the eyes on you makes you even better at what you're, and I liked who I was honestly like growing to be. But if you see me on, I'm not big on LinkedIn, or not LinkedIn. I'm not big on like Instagram and TikTok. I try to post sales stuff there, but like personal stuff. I posted about my wedding, and like that was almost a year ago. So pretty bad at the other pieces of,
You just did a fresh wedding post of you playing the cymbals.
Oh, I did that. Well, that's LinkedIn.
Yeah, I loved it. I loved it. I adore so many things about that answer, Melissa, because like I know, and Darren, I'm sure you'll have a comment on this as well, but I know when folks come to me and they say, I want to start posting, but I don't have the equipment, but I don't have a strategy, but I'm afraid of being rejected. I'm afraid of saying the wrong thing. I'm afraid that what I have to say is not important enough, which is wrong. Like your voice matters. Everybody has something to teach everybody else. But I so deeply adore your journey because it was very authentic to you, right? Like you didn't have it all figured out. You just sort of started posting and then tried this content and then this felt right and tried something else, and it grew very organically.
Yeah.
And it grew into a real community, like very true friends. I was I was saying to Darren and Melissa before we went live that I've had a chance to meet a lot of LinkedIn friends in person over the past few weeks. And the comment I keep hearing is, "Oh my God, Leslie, you're a real person."
Crazy.
And I'm like, "Oh, thanks, folks." But there is something to this really special way that we get to both share our knowledge and create community and connection using LinkedIn and other platforms. What about you, Darren? Like, what made
Yeah.
you feel called to start creating?
I think the other thing that I just think about, like when I'm hearing both of you talk, like I've been in rooms with salespeople for the last 4 years. Both of your names have been brought up a lot, and there's never been a bad thing said about that. And so one of the things, like there's a lot of you on here, like how you show up on LinkedIn is how you are going to be perceived at the dinner table at an event when you're not there. So if you're a jerk in comments and you're just completely like ripping people apart and blasting people, like nobody's going to want to have dinner with you, and eventually you're going to have no community. So like I'm just like, I've never heard that about these two people. And right, like there's a time and a place to push back and to share your voice, and that's powerful. But like, good Lord, please don't do it every single day. Like some of the people I see all the time. I think so for me, listen, I was in remedial math, remedial reading, remedial writing as like a elementary school, middle schooler. I hated school. I knew I wasn't going to go to college. I barely graduated high school. Worked in the oil field, delivered mail and paper in New York City. Like I had, to be honest, y'all, I had no chance. Like I am not supposed to be here. But I loved telling people hi. That's something I've done since I was a little kid. So if I was on the train, I was in New York, I was, getting a pita or whatever in New York, I'm saying hi to everyone. And I think that's what put me in the position that I am today. Rewind, like March 3rd, 2020, I was selling HR payroll services to small businesses for a company called Insperity. And all of a sudden they were like, hey, you can't go to events, and you can't shake hands, you can't do all these things because you're going to get sick. And I was like, I got like babies at home. And
I am always sick.
Like I gotta make money, and I'm always sick, like whatever. And so I didn't know what to do. I wasn't posting on LinkedIn at that point in time, but Morgan Ingram was, John Barrows was, Tabitha Cavanaugh was, Megan Riley. There were a few people that were like doing this, and I was like, wow, they're like not sharing dumb marketing blogs. They're actually sharing like real stuff about like their business. And I was like, all right, I'll do it. And I'm going to be really successful at it. And I'm going to just dominate. Y'all, for 6 months, my brother was the only person that liked my content because he worked in the office beside me, right? At a company called 15.5. And so I was like, all right, well, if I do this long enough, like more people will like it. And then it was like 10, then it was like 20. And then I looked up in 2023 and it was 53 million people. And so like, I was like, what is happening? And then I texted all my teachers and I'm like, remedial writing my butt. And so anyway, for all of you that are thinking about like, I have to be perfect, I have to show up well, I have to have the best cameras. I wish I could screen share and show you all of my top performing posts over the last 2 years. It's the ones that have misspelled words. It's the one where the formatting is shit. And it's the one where my video isn't perfect. And so if you like, listen, Dan Shapiro is the COO of LinkedIn. He shares imperfect walking around videos every day on the platform. Like, be you, and like you will be seen. And my for somebody that wasn't supposed to make it, from March 3rd of 2020, my income is 5 times since that point. That's not that long ago. And I credit it to I probably work harder than most people. But LinkedIn was a massive catalyst behind that growth. And now I just get to share that with everybody else. And you have all that you need to do this. So
Yes.
yeah, that's it.
Oh, that's a great call to action, folks. You have everything you need to be able to do this. Your voice matters. There, I saw a comment that nobody else is going to show up to tell your story. So get out there and do it. You mentioned video sort of briefly, Darren, but so much of what you said, I think, is so deeply applicable to video. I still remember vivid core memory of the first time I had a TikTok get 1,000 views. I mean, which is now if it gets 1,000 views, I'm like, what are we even right? But I so remember this moment. And I mean, my videos were so bad, guys. Oh gosh, they were so bad. But you know what? I was showing up and people liked them, and it was resonant with them. That was 4, almost 5 years ago. Video has come a heck of a long way. Now, I believe that video, both in the sales process and in the sort of social process, is more important than ever. So I want to take a second to maybe one of you can give specific video tips to help folks feel more empowered to show up on video. And maybe one of you can talk about what video will look like in 2025, why video is part of the future in sales. Who wants to take why video is the future of sales?
That's
one of you has
Melissa.
to raise your hand. Melissa, it's on.
It's funny because the very first meeting I ever booked when I was an SDR was through video, after sending a bunch of emails that didn't work at all and doing a bunch of cold calls that no one answered at the time, but also I had shitty data. So I was able to book my first meeting via video, and since then I've been hooked because I was like, this works. And the best part about it was not just booking the meeting, but when the COO joined the call, he was like, Melissa, so happy to talk to me. I was like, oh my God, me? You want to talk to me? So it's that moment of, and that's why I think video is the future, is because you are truly connecting with people. You can get an idea of someone based off of their written post or, an email sort of thing, right? An idea. But when you're actually seeing someone, you're able to connect with them. And so video in the future, both on social and in your outbound, but also in deal progression as well. It comes back to being that person that buyer can trust. Melissa's got my back because here are all the tips that she shared, and she's actually making me better. Melissa's got my back because she sent me a recap of everything that we just discussed. Melissa's got my back because when I added a CMO into the deal, she created a video and explained exactly how we're going to impact them and XYZ. She explained in pricing and all those things. It just helps bridge the gap between you selling and being a real person, but also having your back and all those different things.
Yeah.
So I think just the way that things are going, we do have a lot of automation, which is fine in a lot of different areas. I'm someone who leverages automation in the right way, I think. But in this really heavily automated world, I think that it is important to have that face, have that deeper connection, and just grow with your champion and your audience through video.
I love that. Responding to a couple of comments, yes, that is a hurricane siren. Who knows I'm in Chicago, folks. I'm fine. Who knows what's going on here? But I also really want to just pause on this question for that Jerry put in here for a second, because he asked about it, video being ICP dependent. And Jerry, no, it is not ICP dependent. I spent my career, I did not grow up in SaaS. I have a much more traditional sales background, maybe closer to none of us actually have a traditional, if SaaS is traditional sales background. We all kind of wild out and did our own thing and found our way here later. But I spent most of my career selling to Fortune 500 C-suite, like CFOs, COOs, and also energy guys, like VPs of power plants, and video work for all of them. So I am certain that it works beyond just marketing and sales. And I'm also certain because I've looked at the brain science, and there's two really important pieces of brain science that happen. One is that we can process videos much more quickly than written text. So it's just easier, like it reduces the cognitive load for our prospects who are already frazzled and overwhelmed. So we're doing them a favor. And it also gets your prospect to release happy chemicals in their brain because they have mirror neurons. So as they're reacting to your smile and your facial expressions and your body language, it gets them feeling a certain sort of way. So it is very backed by brain science, and that is not ICP dependent. So I just want to remove that doubt, that fear, that hurdle from folks. Darren, coming to you for some accessible hot tips on how folks can start doing video. And as you're responding, Darren, I want people in the comments to drop a yes, maybe a hell yes, if you are currently using video in any way in any part of your process, or you're going to jump on this future of sales train and you're going to commit to doing it here in Q4 and in 2025. So drop a yes if you're on the video train. Darren.
Hell yes. I'm just kidding. All right. So I sell to the C-suite of Fortune 500. So like some of the largest chief learning officers in the world. Every time I send a video and I get a meeting, I ask them why they responded, because I love data and I want to know why. And the number one thing that they say is, oh, well, you actually knew about my company. Any rep can send me an email, right? Anybody can type an email, right? Well, actually, that's not true. Some people are terrible at writing emails. Most people can figure out on their team how to get it.
If everybody could type an email, I wouldn't have a job. Yeah. So,
and so just a quick tip, right? Like, and this is something that I do. Melissa's heard me talk about this a long time. I don't ever record a video to a prospect while I'm in my office. I don't feel comfortable in my office. I like to be walking around with nature around me, with sirens going off, with a kid, playing on a bike, because I want to be real. And so any of those meetings that I've gotten with those CLOs that I prospect into, it's when it's loud. It's when I'm on the streets of Manhattan. It's when I'm walking downtown Chicago. And the reason being, y'all, is like, as sellers, like, we should be busy. We should be walking to prospect calls. We should be doing our day, right? Also, when you send a video to someone and you're walking, they know you're not reading from a script. And so they're like, wow, this person did their research on my company. And most C-suites or VPs or director, no matter what industry that you are selling into, they didn't get to the position that they got to without being gritty. And so they love grit. They love the extra action. And also, like, it's just so much nicer to get steps in while you're doing prospecting. Like, get out, walk around, do it. And then eventually you'll turn out to like the psycho person like me that like I send videos to like my friends now, and they're like, can you please stop doing this in text messages? And so it's just kind of a funny situation. But get outside, get comfortable, practice on people, and it does not have to be perfect. And if you want me to,
it shouldn't be perfect.
Right. So like, I'll give like a 30-second one just so you can like know what it would feel like. So if like, say I'm calling in a DuPont, right? I always say that because my dad worked there forever. So it's like, hey, Mark, just wanted to tell you, thank you so much for connecting with me. I appreciate it. I know this is going to sound super nerdy, but I'm like deeply care about what I do here at Sky. And I was on page 59 of your sustainability report yesterday, and I noticed mentorship and coaching was in the 2023 one, but not in the 2024 one. And I'm just curious, are you like not thinking about coaching anymore? If so, I'd love to understand why. And please tell Sarah I said hello. We used to work together when she was at Bank of America. Peace.
Fire. How do we, is there like an emoji thing? Can people drop a bunch of emojis or something?
Yeah.
I love it. Such fire. I mean, there's been so much wisdom dropped already. Jared's going to have to pull that clip for us so we can put it everywhere. Yes, I love the emojis. Keep them coming. Okay, incredible. What I heard both of you say too, and I think it speaks to like where we started this call, like, in this time where there is just so much AI, that the things we can do that make us human, that facilitate human connection, are going to be the things that win in 2025. Like, I so deeply believe that being human is the future of sales, But to Melissa's point, use your dang tech stack so that you are freeing up your time so that you're not, not doing those low risk, low value tasks so that you have more time to like be human and live your best life and, get those steps in. Okay. What's dead?
I don't think anything's like really dead. That's what's so crazy about it.
Is that the question you were expecting today, Darren? That's the hard-hitting questions you showed up for?
I was like, I don't know, some of my old relatives. I don't know. They're just like,
Shut up.
all right, too soon. I don't know what's dead. I think putting 600 people in a sequence every Monday and basing it on some crappy intent data, like I think that's probably dead.
Yeah.
It's probably you will get meetings. You're also gonna like fire through all of your ammo in your top accounts and look like a dummy, right? Like
Yeah.
maybe put your manager contacts in a 400 person sequence and have them running like on the back end if it's a really good one. But like, I don't know. I mean, I would never do that again.
I literally never did. That's so crazy.
I mean, neither. I
Your
acted like
domains, your poor domains.
I mean,
your domains will die. Like, that's what will be dead.
your domain will be dead if you do that. I got into a fight with a guy on Instagram last year. Shocking, I know, folks. Because he was like selling a course and his entire value prop was how to make $500,000 super easy. And the steps were like, 1, create a course worth 5 to 10K. And I'm like, oh, that's step 1. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, aggressive. And then it was email 1,000 people a day, every single day, all year.
stupid.
And I was like, good God. And the math that he was mathing is that of those 1,000 people, if 3 respond, you can get 1 sale, and that's a win.
Oh,
And
God.
I was like,
What's the
you're
conversion rate?
everything that's wrong with sales, and I hate you. Get off of Instagram. But that sort of thinking still exists where folks will do those sort of like spam the TAM campaigns and they'll say, but I got 10 meetings. And they're ignoring the fact that they also got 1,000 unsubscribed, 500 blocks, like burned 10,000 contacts to get those 10 meetings. So I agree with you. I think the spam the TAM approach is very dead.
I love that.
Spam the TAM. Maybe saying things are dead is dead.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's really good for marketing.
It's such a good hook. I know. I have a hook next week that I'm like very nervous to hit publish on. It's too late. I've already scheduled it, but I think I'm going to have to not log on to LinkedIn for an hour while people yell at me.
Fair enough.
Okay, what is, in our last few minutes here, what is definitely not dead? So we are talking about the future of sales. We are talking about setting reps, setting sales leaders up for success in 2025.
Mhm.
What is not dead? What is like the big thing that folks need to be doing more of in 2025?
Yeah.
Maybe 1 for sales leaders and 1 for sales reps to bring us home.
Yeah. I think sales leaders, what is, not to go back to what we said in the way beginning about quota, but if I could go back to, because it was just kind of just been festering in me, because reps are having difficulty, hitting quota and all of those things. But I do want to kind of shout out the sales leaders that are making a winning culture. And those companies exist. I've worked at winning cultures. And so I think that like setting ridiculous non-data analyzed quotas should be dead, because you are burning your own reps. You're making them upset. You're making them not want to, really sell for you. They're fleeing. You're just losing money constantly by just not having attainable or fair quotas. And coming from when I worked at Deal, they have such a winning culture. Like quota should be attainable. It's like over 75 or like 80% are hitting quota. And like, there's always new reps coming in. So like they're having to now, learn and ramp and all those things. So to sales leaders, like be realistic with yourself. And if you have to push back on your senior leadership, your C-suite, why quota, this quota that maybe they said or VC or whoever said doesn't make sense, and like have the data to prove it, but you're just burning your own reps, and reps are now talking about it.
We actually have a question from Vivi, which I'm sure is probably born of the fact that yesterday was end of quota with a Verizon outage. And I know there were many a sales leader that went to their sales rep and they were like, offer them 15 for the price of 2. I don't care. Get it across the line. Which is, that's dead. We can call that dead. Let me ask you, Melissa, before I come over to you, Darren, like when a rep is in that type of environment where they are getting a tremendous amount of pressure from their sales leader.
Yeah.
To do those things that are maybe going to win in the short term, but certainly will not win in the long term. Like, what is a piece of advice that you would get them to help them handle that situation?
Yeah. I mean, listen, I do like a quota. I think that they're important and they're meaningful. I also have snuck deals in end of quarter to make it happen. But one of the things, like my head of field sales at a company 2 companies ago, everybody was like, hey, get the deal and get the deal and get the deal. And we promised this to the board and the investors. And it's like, and he looked at me and he said, hey, don't sacrifice a relationship on the last day of the quarter that could be double ACV the first week of next quarter. And so I think about that. Like you have to be strong enough and be confident enough to know in the relationship that you have that you are going to ruin it if you do this now. Also, that same company did something really cool where they gave us spiffs or incentives on quota if we closed deals within the first 2 weeks of a quarter. And so it incentivized people to actually like come in and close things early, which is, something that I've always I hate to be end of quarter and having to push things through. It's not a good feeling.
No.
And so, but yeah, I mean, you're just gonna be confident. The easiest way is to not be in a pinch.
Facts. Oof. Easier said than done, though. Okay,
Yeah.
we are almost at time, but we have one question that I really want to make sure we get to, because the future of sales certainly involves marketing and sales alignment, full revenue alignment, right? Like marketing should be our best friend, our co-conspirator, our collaborator. So we have a question. What's next for marketing teams supporting sales functions in 2025? We can only do like a 30-second answer from each of you. So what is the one thing that you'd like to see more of from marketing to support sales in 2025? Darren, coming to you first.
I would love to see them actually joining calls, actually joining pipeline calls, actually knowing what messaging we're sending out and what's resonating. I would also love to see them deep diving into like analytics and metrics of their, current employees' content, of like employee generated EGC content, because I think it's really impactful. I also think it's our responsibility as sellers to lean into marketing. Marketing is one of the biggest assets that we have, and it's up to us to like foster that relationship, and use both sides need to use each other to like get to revenue. But it's like, I don't know.
Collaboration.
Team.
Okay. Team. Hashtag team. Melissa, bring us home.
I'd like to see marketing enable employee brands. So not telling them what to post, but encouraging them to post, and not just sellers, but your entire team can be selling for you.
Melissa, Darren, thank you so much to everybody that joined this morning. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your participation. Gina, back to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Leslie, Melissa, and Darren. That was absolutely incredible. And just want to give a quick shout out. Thank you to AirMeet for your support in hosting RevCon this year and last year. Let's head over to our next session by Alex Lieberman, who will be talking about crushing your company's newsletter. We'll see you guys over.